Welcome back, guys. Or if you're new here, this is Automotive Anonymous, and that's the brand new, highly anticipated Volkswagen ID Buzz. It's basically Volkswagen's newest minivan, but now it's electrified. It still resembles a microbus, and despite having one major flaw, especially on this platform, it's really fun to drive. It has a lot of interesting quirks, a lot of interesting features, as you could say, and there's a lot that I can't wait to share with you guys. So today we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of the brand new ID Buzz to help you guys at home decide if this might be the right three-row SUV for you, or if you should leave it at the lawn. Look at the competitors to this, which there aren't very many. So today you can expect to see a walk around, all the specs, initial driving impressions, 0 to 60 on GPS, and then my final thoughts. And huge thanks to Goody Motor, Volkswagen, in Twin Falls, Idaho for letting me borrow this one for the day. I'll link them below if you're interested because they sell below MSRP. They ship all over the country. And with that said, let's dive right into this review. And thank you so much for watching car videos on YouTube today. But if you get anything out of this video, you like the ID Buzz, or you just appreciate the effort it took to make this video, please consider liking it, but also comment your thoughts and opinions below. I try to read and reply to as many as I can, and subscribe if you haven't already if you want to see more stuff like this. Thank you so much. But if you're new to Volkswagen, or the ID Buzz, there's a few very cool things that you should probably know. Volkswagen is a German automaker. They were founded in 1937, and since then they have grown to be the second largest automaker globally, just behind Toyota. And in that time, they have absorbed a lot of fancy brands. Brands like Bugatti, Lamborghini, Porsche, most commonly known as probably Audi. So when you see a creation like the Volkswagen ID Buzz, you might be kind of surprised that this came from the people's car, which is what Volkswagen stands for, and that this wasn't a Lamborghini or some other fancier brand. But it actually makes a lot of sense. If we look at Volkswagen's history, they've been producing buses as their minivans since 1950. There have been 6 generations. They've sold over 19 million globally. So although there were a few years of hiatus, at least in the United States, when this came out for the 2025 model year, it was very exciting, very anticipated, and it kind of makes a lot of sense to have an electrified minivan. You have a huge skateboard platform for your battery pack. Most minivans are front-wheel drive, although this is a first edition. This is all-wheel drive. It has 335 horsepower, but that means it's a little bit more pricey than the base model. There are 5 trim levels. They start at about $60,000, but this being the first edition with 4Motion all-wheel drive puts that at about $73,000 before the Goody Motor Volkswagen discount. So for about $73,000, what do you get? You get a vehicle that, although it's not a top safety pick, it does meet the 5-star crash test rating criteria by both the NCAP in Europe and the IIHS in the United States. So it should have pretty decent crumple zones to help slow down accidents and to protect you and your family. But when you're spending $73,000 on an ID Buzz like this, you get a lot of passive and active safety features. So you have 360-degree cameras, a bunch of parking sensors, blind spot monitoring, turn signals on the mirror, adaptive cruise, lane keep assist, and quite a few other things. You have a really nice sounding Harman Kardon sound system. White leather seats throughout this vehicle. The second row is heated, but the first row is not only heated and ventilated and has massaging features, but also is power adjustable and there's memory seats. Beyond that, you have a leather wrapped white leather steering wheel, which looks really good and feels fantastic. You also have one of the most interesting panoramic sunroofs that I've ever seen. You can actually change how much color comes through it or how much light comes through it. And then you have power sliding doors on the side. You have a power liftgate out back and a lot of other just interesting quirky features that you'll have to see throughout this video. But for being a 3-row SUV, this actually fits really well in the average size parking space. It's easy to drive around town. Even this all-wheel drive one is very maneuverable because the all-wheel drive doesn't corner quite the same as the rear-wheel drive, objectively speaking. But at highway and interstate speeds, it also feels very stable. Overall, this vehicle is only 16.25 feet long, so barely longer than a Subaru Outback. But the wheelbase is 10.6, which is absolutely ginormous. Part of the reason this thing is so planted and stable on the road and can fit the 91 kilowatt hour battery pack. Beyond that, it's about 6.5 feet wide, 6.25 feet tall, so it does just look like a rectangle going down the road. And then it weighs about 5,300 pounds. So about 4,000 pounds of that is bus, 1,200 or 1,300 pounds is battery pack. And then it has a towing capacity being all-wheel drive of about 3,500 pounds. This one should have about 6.3 inches of ground clearance and it can do a full circle in a little bit over 40 feet. The last couple things to mention out here is the charge port is located on the passenger side in the rear. So this is a 91 kilowatt hour battery pack. If you do plug it into a direct charger or a direct current, a very fast, high powered level 3, it could charge up to 80% in maybe about a half an hour. But if you charge it at home, it's probably going to take more like 8 to 12 hours, depending on how drained it is and how close to 100% you want it to get. Although most EVs are rated or recommended to only be charged about 80% on a daily basis, which could be a problem depending on what your commute looks like, because at full battery, the ID Buzz is only rated for about 231 max potential road trip in miles. So 80% of that is going to be well under 200. And then this is the tire and the wheel. Unfortunately, there is no spare tire, but it is a Continental Pro Contact tire. It has about 8/32 of tread from the factory. A very cool, basically hubcap design over the lug nuts over this wheel, both aiding in efficiency like you see on a lot of EVs, but also that's part of the first edition package on this. They look really cool. And it's a 235, 50, 20. And then this is your key. You can open up either side door, which is a really nice feature. Then you have lock, power liftgate, unlock. So there's a lot of things you can do to play around with this remote, but honestly, you could also just leave it in your pocket and we'll come over here and open the door with the proximity key features right there. The driver's side door panel is very interesting. It opens up big. You'll notice that the approach to this does feel kind of like a bus, like there's a couple different steps. Even the seat is really high off the ground. It's on raised rails, which is pretty cool. But let's start at the door panel. I'm getting ahead of myself. The window is large. You have fantastic visibility up front. Really cool materials. So although this is just kind of like a white painted version of a cheaper plastic found in another Volkswagen, it's actually fun. It lightens up the interior, especially with all the natural light from all these windows you'll see. And there's just really cool accents. This, I think, has about 14 speakers. The sound system sounds pretty decent. The vehicle seems pretty well insulated. And with the upper tray, you have a lot of door panel storage. But then once you step up here, you'll notice some really cool factory cloth floor mats. You'll notice the hood release. You'll notice it's like a pause and a play button on the pedal, and that's really cool. I don't see knee airbag listed, probably one of the reasons it's not a top safety pick, but you have lighting and some air options right there, a little bit of storage. Lighting stock right there with windshield wiper settings. This looks like real wood. Feels very nice. You can see you have just a little screen. You have the leather wrap steering wheel with the heated feature on the wheel. And then this is your ID leather seat. One of my favorite features is the massage feature, which actually works really good. And then there's your panoramic moonroof up top, which looks huge and actually really blocks a lot of the UV rays and a lot of the light based off of how it feels just sitting in here compared to other sunroof cars. The ID Buzz is quite the experience. I'm not used to driving school buses. I'm not used to driving commercial trucks or anything like that. So I'm not used to having such a flat dash and then a hood that just drops off and, disappears pretty quickly. And having the A-pillar technically all the way over there, this is the B-pillar rather than the traditional A-pillar. Having a vent, having good side visibility, being able to look out of this vehicle really well, even seeing right down the center of the rear view mirror. This is quite the experience, let alone all the white, nice, bright materials capturing and reflecting a lot of light. This orange theme, the soft armrest, man, this would be a fun road trip car, other than the concern about how far you can go before you have to plug in the horn. It's very high pitched, but honestly, it's quite fitting for the Buzz, in my opinion. You have adaptive cruise on the left, voice and volume on the right. You can play around with the screen just a little bit if you want to. You can go through the heated features. You can go through your center screen. Honestly, this is kind of what you play around with on your own at the dealership. There's a lot of options in here. There's a lot of things you can do. But Android Auto, Apple CarPlay is probably going to be the most used one. Climate controls are down here. You can change temperature with a swipe, volume with a swipe. But if you really want to get into fan speed and stuff, you're going to have to click one of these physical buttons or turn on your ventilated seats, your heated seats, and then same on the passenger side. You have hazards. You have some lockout features for the doors, which is common on minivans. You have some nice storage, fold down cup holders. Seriously, wrong hand. It's like it's literally designed for the correct hand. Those pedals, seriously, the pause and play button looks so cool from here. And then tons of storage on the passenger side. Tons of storage with the center console. Honestly, guys, this is a pretty fun vehicle. A pretty fun place to be. Feels like you have a little bit more storage down here, and that's pretty neat too. But one of the coolest party tricks is basically how the shade would work on this vehicle. That's it. Can you guys see the sun right there? Yeah, so it does block out a lot. Probably not as much as an actual shade, but for having this piece of glass open all the time is a very nice place to be. You have the SOS button, you have some LED lighting, you have some more LED lighting. Honestly, this is so fun. Let's hop out into the back and see what else it has to offer. The second row of the ID Buzz is actually really cool. Like a lot of fancy minivans, you can open it up with just the push of a button. There's also buttons on the interior and the front to do the same thing. And then like you saw earlier, the front can actually lock out that feature if you want. But this is a nice opening. This is a captain chair. Although it does have manual features, which is kind of a surprise compared to how fancy the front was. The roof is actually really high. There's a little bit of a handle on this C-pillar to pull yourself in. But like a lot of other buses, there's kind of a step to get up to it. Actually, a couple steps. And then this is still a pretty high up seat. So keep that in mind. But when you're sitting in here, man, this is a nice place to be. Not only do you have tons of knee room, a really cool view from the panoramic sunroof. Right now it is in the more shaded mode. But this is just really interesting. Very fun captain chair armrest. But like a lot of vans, there's also a lot of room to get through a 7-figure configuration just to go right down the middle versus having to move this seat forward and hop up all sketchily through the back way. I don't like that. I like having the bus like, you know, center aisle. It doesn't appear that there's any vents or anything down here for your feet, but everything is up here. You even have your own controls. And on the door, you can see you have your own speaker, your own bottle and snack pocket, your own charge port, and your own heated feature. So you have a lot of niceties in the second row. The only thing that you're missing is basically just a power seat. And then you can even open these windows up and slide them over. And I'm not gonna do that right now because of the Maroni sticker, but that's one of the coolest features on this vehicle. I think the back of the ID Buzz looks really cool, but especially from this angle, without kind of the curviness of the front, you can really see how rectangular it is because again, it's 6.5 feet wide, 6.25 feet tall. And I'm not necessarily sure that that even counts the roof rails up top or the crossbars that this one has, but the rear looks nice. It does say ID Buzz. ID, according to Volkswagen, stands for Intelligent Design. That basically alerts you that this is part of their EV lineup. And then this being a first edition with 4Motion, again, puts this as the apex ID Buzz. There's a few different ways that you can open the power liftgate. There's the button on the door panel. There's the button underneath the Volkswagen emblem. Or today I'm just gonna use the remote. You paid for it, you might as well enjoy it. One of the things that Volkswagen did really well, also on this bus design for being their minivan, is unlike the Honda Odyssey and some other vans, the opening doesn't go over the top of the roof, because in that case, you can't open it as far. This point can't pivot as far because then it'll start to scrape into the roof. So this hatch actually opens up a little bit further than some other minivans just because you can only lift a flat door so high before it caves into the roof, if that makes sense. But one thing that's interesting back here is you have a lifty tray, but no storage down here. So unlike a traditional van, because there's an electric motor and a battery pack under this one, you can't store stuff really low in the back like an Odyssey. So keep that in mind. When the third row is up, you have about 19 cubic feet. When the second row is up, you have about 76. And if you drop both second and third row, you have 146. So those numbers exactly rival the Honda Odyssey. So keep that in mind. Of course, every vehicle is going to be a little bit different, whether you can or can't remove the seats. These ones, it looks like you can remove them with those handles. You can also unclip this, take this out, move some things around. But every minivan is a little bit different in the configurations it allows. So I highly recommend you guys test drive them and check them out for yourself to make sure that it's going to be a good fit for you. One thing that I do find interesting that I don't love about Volkswagen is when their seats are down, they lock into place. So you basically need two hands to get the seat back up. One hand to pull this handle to release it, like to release the lock, and then the other hand to pull the actual seat up. So just keep that in mind. Otherwise, the button up here to lower it is easy to reach, but you could also always use the remote. Now that we're getting a little bit of sunlight on this passenger side, you can really see the metallic flake in this Caravana blue metallic paint. And then you also have the white candy up top, which just looks like kind of an off-white. But overall, very nice. The only thing that this thing is missing is maybe some tint on the front windows. Door panel opens up nice. You again have the steps to greet you. Memory seats even on the passenger side. That is something that Volkswagen does that just not a lot of other automakers do. You still have ID stamped in. tons of storage. And then you have the glove box right here, which actually is pretty decently sized as well. But with that said, let's come around to the front. I'll pop the hood and I'll show you what's hiding under the bonnet of the ID Buzz. Under the hood, there's really not a lot to talk about. Basically just some mechanical components. You might someday need to access some of those for maintenance. Otherwise, the main thing is just the washer fluid right there with the blue cap. But because this is the all-wheel drive ID Buzz, it does have 335 horsepower, and it is genuinely quick for what this is, especially compared to even like the Honda Odyssey I recently jumped out of, and that was genuinely quick for a V6 minivan. But if you want just the single motor, you still have just over 280 horsepower. So although the math might not add up, depending on, if the price increase for the second motor, the all-wheel drive is worth it. If you need all-wheel drive where you're at, we get a lot of snow here some years. I think all-wheel drive is certainly worth it, especially for only a few $1,000s more, but also for the fun that you're gonna have. Not losing traction, putting all of your electrified horsepower to the ground. This thing is genuinely quick. So with that said, let's close that up and take it for a drive. Initial driving impressions in the ID Buzz. I'm excited to show you guys this one. But first, let's get up to speed. This thing, seriously, must be in the 5s or the 6s, 0 to 60. It's really quick. And visibility, for being a minivan, but for being oriented literally like a bus. I mean, look at the dashboard. Look at how far you have to reach. I can't even reach the dashboard or the windshield if I wanted to. That window is huge. Yet visibility is actually pretty good with how quickly the hood cuts down and drops off, especially where you have so much height. For being, a minivan in size and stature for the majority of the dimensions, this thing feels way taller than the Honda Odyssey that I drove just a few days ago. In fact, I was recently driving behind a Gladiator in this, and they didn't look that much bigger than me, and they had some big old tires on that. But anyways, visibility is great. Side mirror profile is good. You can surprisingly see right down the center of this because at 16 feet and change, it's really not that bad. And then the white leather, I do have to say that after having the heated feature on for quite a while, the steering wheel is hot, so are the heated seats. They get really warm, and the massaging feature, especially when it's on the stretch mode, feels really good too. Yeah, and I think with the 1,200-pound battery, we keep a pretty low center of gravity in this. And all-wheel drive, because of the 2 electric motors, actually handles pretty good, but you can kind of feel it gets a little bit top heavy. I'm sure that piece of glass above our heads is not light, but overall this thing is so awesome. It's really fun to drive. The storage capabilities of this are awesome. Obviously the payload is a huge negative. Not even 1,000 pounds on a 3-row SUV. You are not going to be filling all those seats unless you're driving children around or pets. Everyone buckle up because you're going to need it. This vehicle is fun to drive. Seriously, it blew my expectations away. I didn't really know what to expect. I kind of figured this would be like the Honda Odyssey, but with a battery pack with a little bit more power. And just the characteristics of it, just the entertainment that it brings, the looks that you get while driving it, seriously priceless. Or at least about $70,000 worth of price. Anyways, guys, what are your thoughts? What are your opinions? Comment all that below. Otherwise, we will do the 0 to 60 now. 0 to 60 in the ID Buzz. It has 85% battery. We're at over a mile above sea level, but that shouldn't matter because this is all electric. Let's go full throttle. Oh yeah. Not bad. True 0 to 60 came in at 5.7 seconds. Not bad for a 3-row bus. My final thoughts of the brand new Volkswagen ID Buzz is honestly, this vehicle is a whole lot of fun to drive. I really haven't seen very many of these around. I don't know if that's just because of the area I live in, the price tag, or what it might be. Maybe it's the production numbers. But this was really fun. Having the A and B pillar, having that extra shelf of a dashboard, really interesting. The way that the hood just drops down, also very fascinating. Having the huge Volkswagen logo up front, looks good. The mesh grille kind of looks like the brand new Camry, like what I recently drove. Even has some functional aerodynamics, some fancy wheels that make sense for the EV aspect of this. But also in general, they're kind of iconic, kind of retro almost. Having the sliding second row window, that's really cool too. Anyways, guys, I see why people would buy this. I see why it could be worth $70,000, of sentimental value and iconic feel to you. If this is what you want, if you want a modern day Volkswagen bus, this thing does not disappoint. But with that said, it's not cheap. A loaded Honda Odyssey or something else like a Toyota Sienna, you could get you know, similar features kind of for about 20 grand less. You could always go used if you're interested in that. So these are very competitive in what they offer, but not necessarily their price compared to a practical 3-row family vehicle. But I don't think anyone is buying this just to be practical. You're buying this because it's fun, because it's cool, and because you don't want to see cool stuff like this disappear as time moves on and we become way too practical as a society. So anyways, guys, what are your thoughts? What are your opinions? The big issue that this has is the payload is not even 1,000 pounds, and that really shocked me when I saw that sticker. But I'd love to hear your thoughts, your opinions. What shocks you? What surprises you? Test drive one for yourself. And with that said, give this video a like if you got anything out of it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Comment those thoughts below and check out Goody Motor Volkswagen in Southern Idaho. They are fantastic. See you guys.